Welcome to Removing the Thorns. I'm Mondaine, president of your local NAACP. In this 6-episode series, I will be interviewing some of our city's leading professionals to discuss why this is the moment to take a stand of historic significance for equality, justice, and for a community that works for everybody. At the end of this series, we will be hosting our fundraising gala event, Removing the Thorns of Racism in the City of Roses, at the Lloyd Center Doubletree, October 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. You can purchase your tickets by visiting www.pdxnaacp.org. And speaking of the Doubletree Hotel, today's topic is making us take a step back to December 22nd, 2018, to the very same hotel where a very unfortunate event took place that rocked our community. To help us get a clear understanding of exactly what happened and what has been done to prevent it from happening again, the former Doubletree manager, Paul Peralta, will be joining us later in the show. But before that, let me break it down for you. Jermaine Massey, a 34-year-old African-American man, visiting Portland from Kent, Washington, for a concert, stopped in a quiet seating area at the Doubletree Hotel in Lloyd Center to take an important call from his mother before returning to his room. Mr. Massey was profiled, approached, and questioned by a white security officer who ultimately made the decision to contact the Portland police. Mr. Massey, a registered hotel guest, was then removed from the property. A considerable portion of the incident was recorded by Mr. Massey and then posted to his Instagram account, which became viral. Now that we all know the story, I'd like to introduce Paul Peralta, who was the general manager of the hotel at the time of the incident. Paul, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Reverend. It's a pleasure to be here.
Was there anything missed in the way that we formed this conversation? Is there anything that you need to add to that?
No, I think the summary you've shared is a general overview of what happened. From my perspective, being a hotel operator, I definitely have some insight that was never shared, nor does people know, because we have not publicly spoken about it. Mm-hmm. So going back to the incident on the night of December 22nd, what people don't realize is that we lock our hotel doors at 11 o'clock at night. And in doing so, we do a final round, making sure that everyone in the lobby are registered guests of the hotel. Mm-hmm. That's what prompted the questioning of our guests by our security officer at that time. Granted, he was in an area that was primarily for functions, that wasn't in use at the time. So it was unusual for someone to be sitting in that area. And the optics of other people walking by at the time was also in play as people were coming back from concerts and other things at the same time, giving further impression that it was an isolated incident where it was, well, so to speak. But it was customary where after 11 o'clock at night, we would make sure that everyone in the lobby at the time was a registered guest because we were locking the doors at 11 o'clock at night.
Now, Mr. Massey took his phone and recorded this whole incident.
Right.
And he instantly put it to his Instagram account, and it went viral. What was the Doubletree's first response to this, and what actions did they take to make certain that this kind of egregious action wouldn't happen again?
It was a tough one for us because the Doubletree was challenged with. We have customers who are paying for business, and we do a lot of meetings there. So where this incident happened is where all the meetings happen, and we often get concerns or complaints from people who are paying for a business to be there of people eating off of their food or going to their meetings or going somewhere where they shouldn't be, because a paying customer wants the space, they pay for the space. So we play the fine line of making sure we treat everyone, as a guest, but at the same time, if a group does not want them there, we make sure we escort them away from us. But as far as just being in that area, that's something we struggle with after seeing the video, because it was in the course of his normal duties to go around asking people if they were a hotel guest. And in this case, that was a question. Earl did, in his statement to me, did say that, "Excuse me, sir, are you a guest of the hotel?" That was what he asked. And he asked that of every other guest that was in the building at that time. Unfortunately, the video that he posted did not show that.
Yeah. Wow. How did corporate respond to this? The corporate Hilton. Did they play a role, and do you think they did enough?
At that time, everything was moving so quickly. It was really hard to, now I can look back and say, could we have done things differently, quicker? I think absolutely. But as things progressed, it was a little challenging because, remember, the incident happened Saturday night, December 22nd.
Right.
Sunday was the 23rd. Monday was Christmas Eve. So there was a lot of things happening. It was holiday shopping. It was a holiday for a lot of people. So there wasn't a lot of people around. So for us, could we have done things differently? Absolutely. And it also stems to the fact that this is the first time dealing with something like this. We didn't know how to deal with that. So we were trying to figure it out in real time, and we didn't know the impact that would have had.
Now, something that did happen, that there was the immediate removal of the security officer that was involved.
Yes.
And we're thankful for you for moving so quickly on that. And then there was an internal investigation of the DoubleTree's policies and procedures. We've talked about that. We asked for that, and that happened. And then there was racial bias training for the staff of the hotel. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Could corporate have responded a little better, in your opinion? And could they have taken a bigger dive and doing something more significant, other than the franchise that is owned by local citizens?
Right.
What could perhaps corporate have done, if you're not going to get into too much trouble there, to take a deeper dive in helping the community move along from this?
Yeah, no, I would say corporate did a lot to support us, and to your point, the stakeholders that I report to, I report to multiple stakeholders, and by this time this incident happened, they have all gotten involved.
Yeah.
And I think you and I speaking right away was instrumental in formulating the plan of action of what's next.
Yeah.
I think to your point, they had helped me with the right training that was provided, but after conversations between you and I, we helped them use local resources.
Yes.
That was credible, that was trustworthy.
Yes.
And to me, that was the most important thing,
Yes.
is making sure that we can give you lip service and saying, we are providing everyone with this training, but unless you trust it, unless you verify it, there's no way that you can help me make sure that there's transparency in what we're doing.
Right.
So could we have done more? Absolutely. There's a lot more we could have done as far as locally with different people, different trainers, different educators. And this is all part of the learning process, that if you listen to the community, there was lots of resources out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm grateful that you were there from the beginning.
And I'm grateful that you were there, Paul. You really were very easy to work with. And being a person of color yourself, you were able to help facilitate with a much deeper concern because of your own personal lived experience. I appreciate that. Now, listen, what assurances do we have that this won't happen again? And how can we trust that?
Well, I can tell you that the training that we have, it was very eye-opening for everyone. Immediately when it happened, I was struggling with the incident, trying to figure out what was wrong, what did we do wrong, and if we did do something wrong, how do we make it better? So the weeks that happened after the event, the trainings we took and all that, really exposed the biases we all have.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest aha for all of us.
I remember you talking to me about how that really broadened your perspective.
Broadened my perspective. And,
Yeah.
and being, a person of color myself, a third generation from, that was born and raised in Hawaii in a diverse state, I actually thought this wasn't a thing until I learned that I myself have biases.
Yeah.
And even as an operator of a hotel, I know some things in a hotel, how we operate, that may be perceived differently from the outside. So I can tell you what we did. The multi-pronged approach to training education was just the beginning. I think how we hold ourselves accountable is how we continue to be involved with organizations like the NAACP and with any other organization that has a mission to make sure that we are held accountable. That's the only way we can make sure we're staying true to what we said we're going to do.
Absolutely. Do you think that this problem nationally is on the rise? When I speak about this problem, I want to speak particularly to the issues concerning African American men or men of color. Do you think that it's on the rise in our country?
You know, there's a lot of talk based on national rhetoric, and I can tell you from my experience, post the incident, I personally have received numerous calls and voicemails, a lot of it condemning the actions that we did as a hotel. But in all of those messages and emails, I can tell you I had a handful of people that were applauding it, and I was embarrassed to say that there are people out there that supported what we did, and that scares me, because it scares me because there are people out there on the public stage saying things that's fueling the fire. So am I afraid? I think it's happening. I think it's letting people have a voice that they shouldn't. It's working against all the work we're trying to do, and it's hurtful. It really is.
My last question for you, as we get ready to wrap this up. When we talk about racism being on the rise and we see it showing its ugly head in our workplaces as we did, would it be helpful, and how would you frame how we have that conversation interpersonally outside of the corporate arena and in our homes and in our schools and our workplaces? What would you say to that?
I would say I think the best way to do that is to get involved. You know, for me, I've been in hotels and in the business for 20 plus years, and you always get stuck in your industry that you're in. Until you step outside of that and work with other organizations, get to meet people, network, it exposes you to things outside of your world, so to speak. And I think that helps you become more involved because, for example, I get involved with some of our local travel organizations, some business organizations, and in doing so, it's completely different from my industry, but it gets me involved with other organizations and their missions. And every organization has their own mission, and everyone talks about trainings and diversity and inclusion. Everyone uses the buzzwords, but they don't dig deep. And until you get involved with a situation like, you know, I think I look at the situation that I was involved in, I never really understood it until now. And I don't think I understand it completely yet. It's a work in progress, but as you get more involved, it opens more doors for you.
That's right.
And that's just part of the learning process. And that has to happen at all levels, you know, starting from schools, you know, not just corporate America. It's everywhere we can spread the message that, you know, it exists in who we are, biases, but how do we get past that? And how do we spread that? You know, we in corporate America and in the hospitality community in general, we have our own local meetings. I share that all the time, that you all have your own trainings that's provided by your corporations, but take it a step further. Get involved. Join a board. Join an organization. Get involved with someone that is beyond what you do in your day-to-day perspective, and then you'll become a better person. So it's just spreading that love out there that helps people do more. Instead of staying in your zone, your comfort zone.
I'm glad you said get involved and join a board. I do accept that challenge from you to join NAACP. I wonder if you're a member yet. So we're going to have to get you signed up. Listen, Paul, it was wonderful talking to you today, and it was especially important that this led us into our gala of removing the thorns of racism in the City of Roses, and the 6 series conversation that we're having to start exactly where it started for us, Man, it's wonderful to see you. Glad that you're here. And anything we can do for you, let us know. We're there to work together. Listen, I need to make something very, very clear before we close. We've been getting a tremendous amount of flack for having this event at the DoubleTree, which is why I chose this issue as the topic of our first show. And so, as president of NAACP, my choice to host our gala event at the DoubleTree is not my way of trying to sweep this incident under the rug. The DoubleTree owes this to our community. They are giving us this room for free and the food at their cost. This is a choice that concerns conciliation and restitution. They threw one black man out of their hotel, and we're going to bring 500 back in. Now, it's not everything we all wanted. It doesn't look exactly like we wanted it to look, but guess what? It's a start. I'm E.D. Mondaine, president of the NAACP. Thank you so much for watching, and please tune in next week right here on our Facebook and YouTube pages, September 6th at 10 o'clock a.m. for the next episode of Removing the Thorns. Until then, stay strong.